Your live interactive Weather Authority coverage will begin shortly. Your live Weather Authority coverage starts right now.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. Hopefully you had a good weekend. I know the weather wasn't the prettiest, especially yesterday, but hopefully you still got to enjoy the weekend. At least it wasn't too wet out there on Saturday and Sunday. Same can't be said for today. It is quite the soaker out there this morning, and the concerns are increasing that we are likely to see a pretty significant flood event later on today. Things are not looking great in the mountains later on this evening. So thanks for joining, everybody. Of course, the focus of today is what we've been focused on for a lot of this summer, flooding rains, and we're basically primed. We are so things are just so juiced up out there. The ground is so saturated that we're very primed for a flood event. So it will not take too much rain to lead to flooding. And unfortunately, we're getting a pretty significant heavy rain event later on today that will likely make that flood risk very, very high heading into this evening and into tonight, especially over the mountains. So right now, pretty wet out there this morning, but I do want to focus in off to our west in Vermont. Vermont is seeing some very, very heavy rain out there right now. And we have flash flood warnings in place for pretty much the entirety of the state of Vermont. We've seen road washouts, mudslides there, roads closed because of flooding, people trapped in their homes, water rescues going on there. We're likely to see similar scenes later today in parts of Maine. It shouldn't be quite as bad as it has been over in Vermont, but here in Maine, things are likely to get pretty messy out there later on this afternoon and this evening. So pretty wet out there already, but things will only get heavier and steadier as we head into this afternoon. So flood watch is in place for places like Bridgeton, Naples, further inland towards places like Freiburg, up towards Rangeley, Rumford, Mexico, all those towns included in this flood watch that goes through Tuesday morning. I mean, just look at all those flash flood warnings off to our west in Vermont. Lori says, wow, heavy flooding in Vermont. Surely, yeah. All over the state of Vermont right now. The pictures that have been coming out of there have been really, really incredible to see that much flooding. We haven't seen something like this since Hurricane Irene back in 2011. If you were living here in the Northeast or in New England during 2011, you probably remember Hurricane Irene washing away a lot of those covered bridges in Vermont, leaving people stranded. I mean, it caused billions of dollars in damage. It was Vermont's worst natural disaster in their history. And we're going to be rivaling some of Irene's rainfall levels today in Vermont. So that's how significant this event is. It's basically like a tropical storm has moved into New England. We don't have a tropical storm here. That's what also makes this very unusual. Usually it takes a tropical storm to get these sort of rainfall totals, but we don't have that. And we are still going to see some very impressive rainfall as all of that rain runs into the mountains. So a flood watch is in place. We also have a pretty rare high risk of flooding in Vermont and a moderate risk of flooding over here in Maine. I don't even want to focus on our temperatures today. We know it's going to be cool. It's going to be in the upper 60s all day long. The big threat is this flood risk. So the red highlighted area, that is something pretty rare. We don't see such a high flood risk across the state of Maine very often. It's pretty unusual to get one this high, and that's what we've got because it's just been so wet. Again, the ground really just can't handle any more water. So Franklin and Oxford counties, parts of Somerset County and far inland Cumberland County, that's where we're likely to see the most flooding. And over in New Hampshire, looks like that's where things will be the worst, but nothing compares to what they're going to be dealing with in Vermont. Vermont is really going to be hit very, very hard here, especially towards northern Vermont, where we're really going to get quite a lot of rain out there. So if you live in the mountains, you have plans to be in the mountains this evening or tomorrow, just be aware we've got that very high flood risk. We've seen it several times this summer already. The town of Jay is very familiar with flash flooding now and roads being washed out. Similar scenes to what we saw a few weeks ago in Jay, with 6 inches of rain falling in a few hours, are expected today. So definitely a day to remain vigilant, especially in the mountains, as we are again expecting widespread flooding. I mean, look at some of these rainfall totals that are forecasted. This is on top of everything that's already fallen. In Burlington, Vermont, I mean, expecting 5 to 10 inches of rain in northern Vermont, several inches here in Maine. Not as bad as it will be in Vermont, but again, still likely to see a few inches of rain, and in a few short hours that will easily lead to some flash flooding out there. So let's take a look at our storm tracker here. We're going to continue to see the rain developing as we head through the day, becoming steady this afternoon, but it really doesn't become life-threatening or dangerous until we get into this evening. Now, this has me very concerned later on today. This fire hose of very heavy rain, tropical moisture running into the mountains. That's a recipe for flash flooding. As the moisture, the clouds hit those mountains, you can almost think of it as them being wrung out. They basically are squeezed out as they run into the mountains. So that will only exacerbate those rainfall totals in the mountains. But either way, all of us likely to see a very heavy rain and several hours of it as we head into this evening. It looks like 6 p.m. or so through midnight. That's likely when we'll see the worst. Is it going to rain in Vermont? Yes, Vermont actually getting the bullseye here, the worst of the flooding overall, Josh. And yeah, Diane, prayers for everybody's safety. Exactly. Hoping for the best here, hoping we don't see those excessive rainfall totals. But I am thinking that we are going to see some flooding in parts of the state later on today. So luckily, it's not too long lasting. That fire hose of heavy rain does begin to move out late tonight. And by tomorrow morning, it is much quieter. Great news for tomorrow. Looks like it'll be a dry and very warm day on our Tuesday. Temperatures climbing into the lower 80s on Tuesday afternoon. Plenty of sunshine out there tomorrow. Finally, a chance to dry out. There will be a few scattered showers, but overall, it does look like a largely sunny and warm day for our Tuesday. Now, heading into Wednesday, similar situation, another very warm day. In fact, if your plan is to go to the beach this week, Wednesday is going to be your day to do it. It's going to be very warm out there. Temperatures will climb into the middle and upper 80s, even some 90s. Not out of the question. Look at our 1:30 p.m. temperatures on Wednesday. Yeah, 90 not out of the question in the Portland area on Wednesday and for inland areas as well. Now, there could be a few storms that develop on Wednesday afternoon, mainly over the mountains, but there's the potential there for everybody. And any storm that develops Wednesday could be on the stronger side with some flooding rain and some very strong winds as well. So that's another threat that we're going to have to watch this week. And either way, we just have all of this tropical moisture in place. So any storms that we see over this week could have the potential to bring flooding to parts of the state. So Wednesday, of course, very warm, very toasty out there. Temperatures looking great. As I mentioned, great beach weather both tomorrow and Wednesday. 80 tomorrow here along the coastline. Few showers lingering, but overall should be a mostly sunny day. Very warm as well. If you want to be in the lake, great for that as well on our Tuesday. Tomorrow, 80 degrees as well. Just be aware there could be a shower or storm, so you may have to dodge that. But overall, a much nicer day tomorrow. Big improvements. I'm really crossing my fingers, hoping that we end up with very minimal flooding activity across the state this evening. Either way, not the only threat we're dealing with this week. I mentioned Wednesday, we could see some stronger storms. The whole state is highlighted for the risk to see some stronger storms on Wednesday afternoon. It's not like we're all going to see storms on Wednesday, but if you do happen to get a storm Wednesday afternoon, could be on the stronger side with very gusty winds and some heavy rain that could lead to, again, unfortunately, more flooding. But overall, we get 2 great days this week, tomorrow and Wednesday, after today's very heavy rain and flooding. Heading into Thursday and Friday, storm chances return, but it's not looking all that widespread. Notice how temperatures remain pretty warm through the end of the week and into the weekend. And if you're inland, also going to be very warm out here the next couple of days. Better chance to see an isolated storm or two Tuesday and Wednesday. And then as we head towards the end of the week, a little cooler, but still quite warm, and chances for scattered showers and storms. But no day beyond today looks quite as wet. We're going to be a little drier out there towards the end of this week. No washouts after today. So we just got to make it through this exceptionally wet Monday, and then we will be much better for much of the rest of this week. So I want to bring up that flood threat again, because I do believe it's going to be quite significant later on today. Big flood potential this evening in Oxford and Franklin counties. If you live in the Oxford Hills, if you live up anywhere in Oxford or Franklin counties, if you live somewhere where you know that the streams tend to flood and block your access to or from your home, yeah, today might be a day to have a plan just in case those water levels do rise quickly. So Oxford and Franklin counties, again, in that very high risk of flooding. We've got a flood watch that is in place as well for Oxford and Franklin counties, as well as a small portion of Cumberland County. So Naples, Bridgeton, you're also under this flood watch as well. So from Freiburg all the way up through Rangeley, all of Oxford and Franklin counties under this flood watch, which goes through Tuesday morning again, as we're expecting some very intense rainfall totals here later on today. So I want to leave you guys with this one final look at the radar here. Very heavy rain falling across Vermont right now. Fairly quiet in Maine. It's wet out there, but it's not too bad. Things only go downhill later on this evening. It looks like between about 4 or 5 p.m. or so and about midnight. That's when our highest flood risk will exist out there today. So stay safe, everybody. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope that flood issues are minimal. But considering what we've seen in New York and in Vermont, I would think that we are going to see some flooding, some washouts later on today in parts of the state. So really, really hoping that we can keep our damage here in Maine to a minimum, and hoping for everybody in Vermont and New York, hoping for their safety as well, as this is really not something you love to see. Quite a significant event ongoing in terms of flooding. So have a great day, everybody. Stay safe out there. Remember to never drive through a flooded roadway, even with a big truck, especially at night when a lot of this flooding will be ongoing. Can't see how deep that water is. So yeah, definitely a day to be careful, especially if you live in Oxford or Franklin County. So have a great rest of your day, everybody, and stay safe out there as well.